Lost? Clueless? Unsure of where to go next? Well, that's enough about me, because today's game is all about making maps in an unknown countryside. Today's game is Cartographers by Thunderworks Games. Hi, and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now, back in the early 90s, when I first started out my career as an external field sales rep, it was my job to travel the towns and the cities of the UK from my home base in South Yorkshire and go and peddle my wares. And the only way I could get to where I needed to be, because this was pre-GPS and pre-satellite navigation, was by having a big box of A to Z maps in my boot. So I'd get my appointments for the day, I'd whip out my A to Z map and I'd find out where I was going. And these maps were great because obviously it would take me through where I needed to be through the various towns and cities to, I don't know, the high street in Little Mickover or wherever it is. So when I heard about Cartographers from Thunderworks Games, these are the guys behind Role Player, and when I heard that they were releasing a map-making flip and write game, did I jump at the opportunity to relive those heady pre-satellite navigation days? No, of course not. I mean, let's face it, unless you're really into maps and some great old maps, then looking at the various high streets of England, it's not really that interesting, is it? However, the thing about Cartographers is, as I mentioned, it's Thunderworks Games, it is set in the Role Player universe, and it is a flip and write game. And we know that in the last 12 months or so, flip and write and roll and write and all the various and write games have really made a massive impact on the market. You know, the only other one I have at the moment is Welcome To, which I absolutely love. I think it's a great game, a great kind of filler game I can take away with me when I'm working away from home, or I can take on holiday or use it on a train, a plane, that kind of thing. So the real reason that I wanted to get Cartographers was the fact that, you know, it's a growing genre and I think I needed to experience more titles within this genre. So that made me go for Cartographers. So last week I spent the kind of £17, ordered it online, and it arrived within about a day or so. And I've had about about 6 games of it so far. It's a flip and write game, and and without going into the review too early, it does exactly what it says on the tin. This game absolutely allows you to make and create maps in an unknown area, and provides a puzzle element as you're putting those together. So let's have a look at what you get in the box of Cartographers. Because Cartographers is a relatively small box game, I've skipped over the normal section where I would talk about the box itself, but so we'll do that as we look at the contents. As you can see, we have this kind of bland, slightly generic artwork on there, very colourful, with a cartographer, a male cartographer at that, having a look at the land and drawing his map, and then there seems to be some kind of added on something or other down here. It kind of shows you that, what the game is. We're looking at a landscape and we're going to be mapping that out eventually. Now on the back it tells us that Cartographers is a role-player game, as I mentioned earlier. It's set in the role-player universe, and it says, Queen Gimnax has ordered the reclamation of the northern lands. As a cartographer in her service, you are sent to map this territory, claiming it for the kingdom of Nalos. But you are not alone in this wilderness. The Draggle contest your claims with their outposts, so you must draw your lines carefully to reduce their influence. Reclaim the greatest share of the Queen's desired lands, and you will be declared the greatest cartographer in the kingdom. And there you go, you can see kind of setup of the game itself. It says here it's for 1 to 100 players, ages 10 plus, and each game will take 30 to 45 minutes. Now, I've only played this solo, and it will probably be the majority of where it's going to be played for me is solo, and I can say 30 minutes is pretty much bang on there. So let's have a look what you get inside the box itself. So it's designed by Jordi Adan, And the first thing is the rule book. It's a relatively small rule book, and it's 12 pages long, and I would say about 7 or 8 pages of those are the rules themselves. You have the bespoke solo rules on the back as well. It's a very easy game to learn. In reality, within about 5 minutes of opening the box and glancing through the rules. And also, I had pre-watched Liz Davidson's excellent How to Play It Solo video on Beyond Solitaire. Then yeah, you can get this out of the box and be playing it within about 5 or 10 minutes. So then we have, as you get in kind of most flip and write games, is a pad with a number of maps on there. And the maps are two-sided, so you have the standard side, and you also have a slightly harder side on the other side itself. Yeah, and you get about 100 of those in there, and that's why it says it's 1 to 100. I can't see 100 people playing this. Then you also get 4 small pencils, which is great, but they're all graphite pencils, they're not coloured pencils, and as you see when we go into the gameplay, coloured pencils would have been a little bit more useful. And then you have the cards. So you have your edict cards, and these effectively tell you what you're scoring. You have your season cards, and this is your timer throughout the game. So it tells you which of your scoring edict cards you're going to be using that particular round, and how many, what the timer is on the game itself. And each card, as we go through it, you'll see will have a number, be it 1, 2, or 0 on there, and that's how you know how far through spring, fall, winter, and summer you are. Then we have the ambush cards. So there are 4 of these cards, and one of these goes into your hand each round, and effectively you can get ambushed and not have to battle, but it affects how you write on the map. On the map. And then here we have the various cards, and you'll pick one. There are 4 types of cards here, and you pick one of each type, and these will tell you where best to place the various tiles on there, be that a farm tile or a river tile, or be it a homestead tile or a forest. This will tell you where you need to place those various tiles to allow you to generate the best scoring. And then we have your deck, if you like. So this is what you will pull out, and it will tell you which of these triomino style shapes you can put, exactly what type of resource you're putting down, be that in this case, be it a homestead, or be it farming land, or be it an orchard, or be it a river. And then there are temple cards as well, or ruins cards should I say, and there are a number of these cards, and you work your way through that deck. What you also get in the box is, if you've got role player, you get a backstory card for Cartographer, so that will go into your role player box, and that's it. And as you can see, take out the map book, and it's effectively a box of a lot of free space. I don't know if they could have done it any different, but maybe it could have had some laminated versions of these, like you get in Railroad Ink, maybe folded, so the box could have been even smaller. As it stands, with a bit of kind of pre-work by yourself, you could really put this into a smaller carrying box or folder, and that means you can take it away with you if you're going on a plane, a train, if you go into a hotel. It's a fairly easy and portable game to take around. So that's what you get inside the box of Cartographers. It's a £17 game, and it's paper and some pencils that you get in here, and that's okay. That's absolutely fine. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at how you set up and how you play Cartographers. So it's a small box game, and as you can imagine, and from what you've seen of the contents, setup is an absolute breeze. Literally quicker than entering a postcode into a sat-nav in a car. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to set up your edict cards. And as I mentioned earlier, these are what's going to drive your scoring in the game, and there are 4 of those. And you're also going to set up your seasons, which are your timer for the game. What you will then get are your deck of cards that you're going to work through. So you'll shuffle those and put those over to one side, and you're going to get your 4 ambush cards, shuffle those, put those over to another side. If you want, as a bit of a just to warm you up, take the first one of those and shuffle it into your scoring cards here. There we go. Now, as I mentioned, there are also 4 different types of cards that you get. You get the homestead, you get the farmland and the river, you get the orchard, and you also get an alternative scoring method there as well. So you're going to shuffle each one of those, choose one, and place it underneath a scoring condition, and you can do that absolutely randomly if you want. So there we go, and the final one goes there. The last thing you're going to do for setup is you're going to grab your pencil and you're going to grab your map pack, and as a solo player what you're going to do, you're going to write your name in here. So there we go, Mark. And you're going to leave the title blank, because on the solo game what's going to happen is you're going to get the title at the end of the game depending on how much you scored. Then you can create a little crest if you want, so let's call this NBG for Not Board Gaming, and also you can create a crest there. So there we go, we got some kind of dog going in there, and that's it. I'm now ready to play Cartographers. How quick was that? When you start playing Cartographers as a solo player, the setup is exactly the same as it is for multiplayer. Of course, you only get one map, which is good. That means you don't have any additional rules to take care of. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to flip over one of these cards. And as you can see, on this one, we have a fishing village, and it's got a number 2 in the top corner. And what that number 2 is for your timer. Each game is going to be played over a number of seasons: spring, fall, winter and summer, with summer being the final season. And in the top corner again, you can see that there's a number there. And what that means is that when you've drawn out equal to that number, or 1 over that number, as the case can be, then that season is finished and you score that particular season. Also, on the seasons cards, you can see it's got an A and a B, and that means on this particular round, it's only the cards that are under the Edict card A and Edict card B that are going to contribute towards your scoring. So on this very first go, we flipped over the card, and it says it's a fishing village, which is either a homestead or a river, and you can see the tetromino style tile piece below it that you've got to lay, and that's 4 lines straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my map here, which is totally blank at the moment, and I'm going to put 4 straight lines somewhere, either a river or a homestead. However, the scoring conditions underneath the cards dictate where the best place is to play these. So this says for a homestead, I will earn 8 reputation stars for each cluster of 6 or more village spaces. Or, if I'm thinking about scoring for my card B, earn 1 reputation star for each water space adjacent to a ruin space, and earn 3 reputation stars for each farm space on a ruin space. However, it's never just as straightforward as scoring for those 2 rounds, because your seasons, the scoring conditions on each season, never change. So you know that spring is going to be scoring cards A and B. Fall is going to be C and D. Winter is going to be D and A. And summer is going to be B and C. And that means that you're constantly kind of thinking not only what can you score best for this round, but as whatever you put on your map carries over to subsequent rounds, will it affect my future score? And the answer is invariably yes. And that's part of the puzzle of this game. It's not only working out where to put your tile, but it's also working out the benefits of gaining an immediate benefit from it, or will it affect my future score in such a way that I will gain further benefit from it in subsequent rounds. So I really like that aspect of it, in the fact that you're playing a constant game, and it also means that the early turns actually count in later game scoring. So on this first go, I've drawn the fishing village card, and it says I can put it on a homestead or a river, and I've got 4 tiles in a straight line, and it's going to cost me 2 out of my 7 timer for spring. My 8 timer for spring. I know, as I mentioned, that if I put the straight lines for a homestead, I can build towards getting 8 stars if I have 6 in a row, but I can also earn a reputation point, 3 reputation points for stars for each farm space on a ruin space, and the reputation points are how you score the end game. So what I'm going to do is I'm thinking, okay, yes, I could build up to get 8 here, but I can actually get 3 on this, and this would be recurring. So for these 4 as it is on the Tetrominus style tile, I think I'm going to actually use it to put homesteads down. Because then I only need another 2 homesteads I can add to that, and that means I will get 8 stars each subsequent round. So let's find out where we put these. I'm going to put these down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. I've filled in 4 spaces, and what you can do is put down little diagrams of what's in there, and as you can see, my very perfunctory houses. And that's it. That's the explore phase done there. I've drawn a card. I've noticed that I've got 2 off my timer. I've got 4 down. I've put them on a homestead, and I'm also now only need 2 further homesteads to actually get 8 stars in this round and subsequent scoring rounds where this card is in play. I've also put it adjacent to a mountain. Now, mountains can provide you with gold coins, which count as additional reputation scores for each round and for the end game score as well. If you surround a mountain on each adjacent side and you fill the space next to it, then what that will do is that will give me a gold coin. So I've already started filling around my mountain here. So that's the first round done, and then what happens is I draw the next card, and here we can see it's a 1 point, so I'm only 3 into my timer, and I've got a farmland, and I can do 2 things with this farmland. I can either place 2 in a straight line and get a gold coin, or I can place 4 in a cross and potentially put it next to a mountain. So I think that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to fill that in. There we go. And straight line, straight through it. Let me know that that is indeed farmland. So I'm already 3/4 of the way now through getting a gold coin, which is an extra point, and I'm only kind of 3 points into my 8 on the timer. So far this game is going well. One of the good points about the game is that when you draw these cards and they tell you what style tile you can play, you can actually put them in any orientation. So, as we look at this particular card, you can see that I could get a gold coin for putting 3 in a straight line, or I get more, not gold coins, but I get more area if I use the other space there. On my map, you can see I have a number of filled in spaces already, and I do know that as part of the condition under B, it says that I can earn 1 reputation star for each water space adjacent to a ruin space. So as I look on this map and I look at the card that's drawn, and you've got this shape here, I can see that I can actually place that shape against a ruin space, which means I can then capitalize and get a reputation point in my scoring if I place it where I want to. So let me show you where I'm going to place it. So going back to my Great River card, I'm going to use this particular tile here. And it needs to be placed next to or adjacent to a ruin space for me to earn a reputation point. And look up here, I've got a ruin space just here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this in. There we go. That goes there, like that. And I have a river filled in next to a ruin space. I know the end of round scoring, that's going to score me a reputation point. And as you can see, I've used 2, 4, 6, 7. I still got 1 left on my timer of 8 on spring. And that's how the game continues. I'm going to continue drawing these cards, which has got a timer against it, so that's now 5 on there. I'm going to look at the shape that's on the card, and I'm going to place it on the map to either gain immediate points from scoring conditions on this particular round, or having a look at how it can assess in future rounds. It's not a complicated game. The beauty in the game is actually working with this real-time Tetris style polyomino placement game in drawing up a map which can absolutely deliver points now and points in the future, and trying to get to the ultimate goal of getting the most points possible. As a solo player, that's particularly difficult, and I'll come on to that in a bit. So I've now completed all of the moves I can have this go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've gone 1 over the 8, but that's because my last card had a 2 timer on it. And now it's time to score my spring round. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, have a look at this. And it says here, I can get 8 reputation stars for each cluster of 6 or more village spaces. And that means if you put 2 tiles together and it equals more than 6 village spaces, then I can get 8 reputation points for it. And as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 in a particular cluster there. That means I'm going to get, under A on my scoring card, 8 points. There's also B as well. And what's it say on B? Earn 1 reputation star for each water space adjacent to a ruined space. Look at this here. This is where I placed that one earlier. There's a ruined space. There's my water. And I've got 1, 2. So that is 2 reputation points on there. I've also got some gold coins I can cash in as well. So although I didn't choose any of these that had a gold coin against them, I have surrounded a mountain. So that gives me a gold coin. So that gives me 1 there. So and then this final one is if I pulled out any cards that are ambush cards for the monsters, and none have come out. So that's no minuses there. So it's just the sum total of here. So I've got 8, 10, 11 for my spring round. Let's talk about the ambush cards. Once every round, you're going to put an ambush card into your deck. And if you draw that ambush card out of your deck, that means that you then have to place a monster space or some monster spaces on your map itself. Now, if you don't draw the ambush card out, that's not necessarily a good thing. Yes, you won't get any minus points at the end of the round there, but that also means that that stays in your deck as well. And that means the next round you're going to put another ambush card in there, and that means you're going to have 2 monsters potentially ambushing you. So if we look at this ambush card here for the Knoll Raid, it says here up in the top, and this is for the solo play only, you've got 4 little squares, and one of them is coloured in purple. And you can see there, the top left square is coloured in purple, and that means on my player map, I'm going to start in this top left corner and see where I can place this. You then also have here an arrow which tells you if you can't fit it in your allotted space, in this case the top space, which way round you go to try and fit it in. So I'll be going down if I couldn't fit it in there. It gives you the number of spaces that you have to fill in for a monster, and as you can see we've got this kind of C-shaped space on here, and what happens is when you fill that in, any spare adjacent spaces to that will count as a minus point for that round and subsequent rounds throughout the game. And if you're therefore adding a monster card to your deck every time and you haven't drawn them out by the 4th round, you could be having a really great game, and it could be that you get 4 monster draws or ambush draws out in a row, and that means that you then have to take off a load of points towards the end of the game there, but also it affects you on each round. So looking at this C shape, I have to start in the top left corner. As I say, these are the solo only rules, and I have to put a C shape in. So as we can see up here, there is plenty of room up here to draw the C-shaped space in. So I could do this, and I could add monsters. There we go. And there we go. That's my monster added to that particular board now. And that means that if that monster had been drawn out for any subsequent rounds, I would minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points each round. And that's how the game starts fighting back against you. So at the end of my round, I've scored up, and I know I've added an extra monster for an ambush there that wasn't there, but that was for demonstration purposes. I've added up and I've got 11 that round. So I'm going to show you now what we do to move on through each round. So each round there are 4 rounds and each one is a season. We've gone through spring, so we're going to take that card and discard it, and now we're moving into summer. And as you can see on here, we're going to score under edicts B and C, so that's these cards which are under B and C are going to provide scoring this round, and it's also again got a timer of 8. Now, had I not removed the ambush card from my deck, I would still have an ambush card in there, and what you do each round is you take another ambush card and you don't look at it, you add it into the deck and you shuffle, and that provides your deck for the next round. And then you continue in pretty much the same vein throughout the rest of the season, scoring accordingly to those and watching your timer. You're going to draw a card, have a look at what's on the card, and place the relevant tile on your map. And in essence, that is Cartographers. You're going to play each round in more or less the same way by drawing out your cards, placing your tiles on the board, making sure you know your scoring conditions for that particular round and also subsequent rounds as well, until you've reached the end of the final round, which is winter. And there you go, you can see winter has a timer of 6 and it's going to score you against D and A. So once you've done all that, you will then tot up your final score for the game. However, it gets increasingly difficult to place your tiles in the right place because your map is going to start getting very, very full. Every time you draw a card, you're going to put another tile on there and your map will get full. And you may start struggling to place pieces on there. And of course, you're going to have your monsters and your ambushes that you start playing as well. However, once you get through all that and you get to the end scoring game, you can tot up your final score. And here's one I played yesterday. And on this one, as you can see, I got a total score of 86. That sounds great, doesn't it? That sounds like a lot of points, but oh no. As a solo player, this game is going to come along right at the very end and it's going to kick you in the backside. Because in the multiplayer game, the person who has the highest score at the end is crowned the winner. That's straightforward. Of course, in a solo player game, you're not playing against yourself and you're not playing against any kind of automa or bot here. So what the game does is it devises a fiendishly devilish way of scoring against you. The aim in the solo play game is to come out with a title, and you can see the titles there ranging from Legendary Cartographer down to Obvious Ink Drinker, and the total points ranging from plus 30 to minus 30, and trust me, you can go beyond minus 30. But you just see my score sheet. I got 86 there. Obviously, I'm way above 30 because I have 86 points. Therefore, I'm a Legendary Cartographer. Oh boy, oh no. Because the solo player game really, as I mentioned, has this kind of scoring system which goes against you. So you've got your kind of 4 scoring cards, which I mentioned you put under the edicts. These are these here. And at the bottom of each card, in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a star with a number in there. And this is for purely solo play only. What you will do is you will take your overall score on the map, which, as I say, for mine is 86, and then you're going to do the sum total of the star in the bottom of each of these cards. Now, I've already totted this up, and that comes to 82 points. That means my 86 is only actually worth 4 points. And with 4 points, that means I will only become an apprentice surveyor. So if I'd got 10 or more, I could have become a journeyman topographer. And trust me, it's very, very easy to get really deep into the minus points. My first game of cartographer, I got minus 36. And that is kind of a little bit of bedevilment that the game has with you. It is a beat your own score kind of system that's in here, and it will work for some people, won't work for others, but it does add an element of competition for yourself and also strategic thinking within the game. So that's Cartographers. At its heart, it's a relatively straightforward flip and write game. It sets up very, very quickly. It's really easy to play, and it's a good game for kind of measuring how well you're doing each game, and you will have this element of strategic thought, as I said, kind of playing the immediate and also playing the future as well. But just like walking through the front door and your wife being very quiet with you, there are some things that we need to discuss. First, for me, it's the art. Some of the cards, and certainly the edict cards, very much fit into the role player art style. If you like role player, it fits into that universe, but that's pretty boring, isn't it? That, I mean, there's just nothing there. It makes very little sense as well. You've got the guy looking off into the distance that way with loads of beautiful mountains here, writing something down but not actually looking at it. It is a guy. Would it have really killed him to make it a female cartographer? And who's this dude? who is this dude? Why are they tacked there? You know, that is obviously maybe something from the ambushes, etc. But it just looks like it's just been thrown onto the picture. It's not an exciting game in terms of look. You know, it's very functional for the cards. On the plus side, I think the map pack that you get absolutely works. You know, it gives you this old world burnt edge map feel. As I mentioned earlier, there is also an alternative side as well if you want to make the game a little bit more difficult. But it's functional. It's a £17 game. They're not going to throw lots at it. The second thing for me is the fact that it's called Cartographers. Now, cartographer looks out at the land and walks the land and maps out to the land itself. You're not necessarily doing that in this game. What you're doing is you're choosing which pieces of land to place where. So therefore, you're not strictly a cartographer. Yes, you're making a map, but you're placing land elements within that map rather than drawing what's out there. So the name of the game doesn't totally marry up to what you're actually doing in the game. And I must admit, I don't know whether they could do it any other way. You know, I can understand why they called it Cartographers. You are making a map, but you're not mapping out what's in front of you. You're choosing the elements. It's almost like a kind of populous light that you're doing. Another thing is that it is obviously classed as part of the role-player universe. I know it's a totally standalone game. It has, other than a bit of flavor text, absolutely nothing to do with role-player as well. I mean, this game could have used any thematic structure underneath it. You could have been on Mars, you could have been in a modern city, you could have called it, I don't know, countryside planet. There's lots of things that you could have called this. It's obviously a game with simple mechanics that they pushed in to the role-player universe, and it has to fit somewhere. Every game has to have a theme. I absolutely get that, but it could have absolutely worked as a standalone game. Maybe it could have worked better as a separate IP to role-player with some additional features on there. I don't know. Now, the final thing for me, is that it plays exactly the same every game. You know, you get the element of randomness in pulling out the various cards which tell you where the tiles are going to go, but it's still the same functionality that you're going to be doing every game. I think it would have served better had they added an element of player variability in there. Now, I know it's kind of been answered. They've released a skills mini expansion that you can get from Thunderworks Games, and I think if you bought the game directly from Thunderworks Games, you could get the skills mini expansion within the box itself. But the retail box, which I got, doesn't come with the skills mini expansion, and I think it sells, I've seen it on eBay for kind of 25-30 quid, which is just way too much. It's more than I paid for the game on its own. It's a shame that Thunderworks Game didn't include that in all copies. I think it's 4 or 5 cards. I don't know exactly what it does, but it adds an element of skill and variability to your player when you're playing. And if you go back into the role-player universe, that's where that link is really important, because if you played role-player, then you know that part of the setup of the character itself is drawing out some of these traits and some of these abilities and which dice you've got to place where, and that adds a massive element of player variability in the base game of role player. It would have been nice to see that come across to Cartographers, certainly in the retail version. I know they've fixed it and may continue to fix it, but for me it's a bit of a miss that they didn't do it in this. It would have been 4 or 5, 6 cards they could have thrown in there that would have made a lot of difference to the game. Okay, so final thoughts on Cartographers by Thunderworks Games. And as a very inexpensive £17 flip and write game, it's a good game. I mean, you can easily spend 30 minutes on this, set it up and play it again for another 20 minutes or so, and you'll have a fun time. Part of the depth of the game comes in really structuring where you're going to place these pieces, how you're going to make the most out of it, and it's quite deceptively a thinky, strategic game. On the flip side of that, it's very, very light. The theme is almost irrelevant. The links to the role-play universe don't matter at all. And as I mentioned, one of the major downsides is this lack of variability that you get for each player. Just a few more cards, Thunderworks Games, shame on you, included in this box would have made a big, big difference for me. I do like it. I'm not, I don't regret buying this for an instance. I travel a lot for work. I stay kind of 3 nights a week in a hotel, and it's certainly a game that's going to be coming with me. Just so I can set it up in the hotel or on the train going down to London, so I can play it, and it will pass time, and I will enjoy the experience. It's not a game-changing game. It does nothing different. And that's okay. Sometimes games just need to capitalize on the market that's there, and the roll and write, flip and write market is definitely growing all the time, and it's a great addition to have to it. If you're a massive role player fan, I'm not, I like it, I don't love it, but if you're a massive role player fan, it's not an essential purchase. You may want it to if you're a completionist, but it's absolutely not an essential purchase. So for me, it's almost recommended as a game. As a £17 game, it's absolutely recommended, because I think you can do far worse things with £17 than spend it on a game that's going to give you many sessions of joy out of it. So there we go. Thank you very much again for listening to and watching Not Board Gaming. I've been Mark, I'm your host. Please remember to subscribe to the channel. We are growing massively on a daily basis, and I want to thank everybody so far that's joined the channel and continues to listen to the reviews. So yes, please subscribe to the channel. Please share the video and ask your friends to subscribe, and in any forums that you've got. Please don't forget to join us on Facebook. That's Not Board Gaming. That's always BORED. As mentioned, you can subscribe to the channel. You can also check out our other videos that are available. Our other reviews are available. And remember, if you can't find anybody else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourself.